In business today, three things to know. First, the nation pauses to remember the 13th anniversary of 9/11. We'll have complete coverage and speak with some of those making a difference for the families who suffered losses. Then, waiting for Goodell. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell is facing a growing chorus to quit over the Ray Rice affair. But will the owners of a league that made $10 billion be so willing to let him go? And Coffee Man in the corner office, Rohan Marley talks about his success in the competitive world of beverage drinks. Arise Xchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. The 13th anniversary of 9/11 unfolded the way the others have, with memorials and moments of silence. This was the scene at the opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange this morning. Members of the charity group Tuesday's Children and 9/11 Day rang the opening bell. We will speak with the group's leader later from Tuesday's Children. NYSE has a history of inviting leaders of charities, first responders, and the families of the victims to the Exchange's floor on 9/11. NYSE was closed several days after the attack. At the World Trade Center site, the names of those killed in the attacks were read.
Douglas McMillan.
And President Obama and the First Lady held a moment of silence at the White House. And in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, there was a memorial for those killed on Flight 93. We will have more on 9/11 coming up. But first, as President Obama presented last night, the nation faces a new threat from a group known as the Islamic State, terrorists that have marched at will through parts of Iraq and Syria and are responsible for the murder of 2 American journalists. Mr. Obama last night outlined his strategy.
We will conduct a systematic campaign of airstrikes against these terrorists. Working with the Iraqi government, we will expand our efforts beyond protecting our own people and humanitarian missions, so that we're hitting ISIL targets as Iraqi forces go on offense.
And after the speech, the analysis started coming right in. Arise News contributor Eric Ham is in Washington, D.C. Eric, I want to start with Secretary of State John Kerry's meeting today with the King of Saudi Arabia. What did they cover?
Well, he's trying to actually bring them on board, much like with the rest of the members in the region, to get them to actually support training Iraqi security forces and arming and supporting Syrian rebels on the ground. Of course, we have to understand that Saudi Arabia, of course, is very hesitant about their role in all of this. They don't want to be seen as being too harsh, too brutal on fellow Sunnis and the possible backlash to them. So it's a very delicate dance that Kerry has to have with them going forward.
And of course, there's been accusations that a lot of the money flowing to ISIS is flowing through Saudi Arabia. The president and the White House facing some criticism today about the president comparing this to our attacks in Somalia, and that it's not the same thing. How are they reacting to that criticism today?
You know, that was actually an issue last night that didn't get as much coverage as I thought that it should. You know, you never want to give a primetime address and use Yemen and Somalia as examples. I thought it was very surprising that he actually mentioned them, particularly given the sustained brutality of al-Shabaab and al-Qaeda in the region.
Yeah, there's some questions about the success there. Now, the president is going to Congress. He needs $500 million. That's what he wants to support Iraqi forces. What is the latest from Congress?
Well, keep in mind, this is just the start. We do know that the Iraqi security forces, we've already seen them in action against ISIS, and that hasn't gone very well.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that the president his plan included such an integral engagement with these forces because they just haven't been that good. And so we're actually putting a lot of money into helping build up this force. And the question is, how long is this going to take to actually get this to be a ready fighting force? And that alone could take an enormous amount of time, and also the cost associated with that. So I think Congress needs to be asking these questions going forward.
And one interesting point, John Kerry today was asked, is this a war? And he said, we're not using that word. So clearly the White House walking a very tight rope here with this situation. Eric Ham in Washington, D.C., thank you.
Thank you.
Stocks slumped on Thursday as the price of oil continues to slump. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closing down 1971. The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both turning around losses late in the day, closing moderately higher. Some of the stocks we're watching: Radio Shack may be headed for bankruptcy. This after the failing electronic retailer reported it was down to $30 million in cash. That's $140 million less than it had at the start of the year. Radio Shack up 9 cents to 9.56, however. To $1.02. Shares of yoga wear chain Lululemon rose by more than 14% in trading. The Canadian company raised its forecast for the year and reported second quarter profits that beat estimates. Revenue for the quarter increased by 13% to $931 million. Lulu closing up 5.34. And Alcoa, the nation's largest aluminum producer, signing a long-term deal with Boeing for more than $1 billion. The deal makes Alcoa the sole supplier of wing skins for Boeing that have a metallic structure. Alcoa closing down 30 cents. And taking a look at commodities, gold closing down, oil edging a little bit higher. And that's where we're going to start talking in a moment. The number of claims for unemployment benefits rose to its highest level since June. The Labor Department says claims climbed by 11,315 for the week ending September 6. Kathy Boyle is with Chapin Hill Advisors, joins us now. We mentioned oil just before, and I want to ask you about that, though. It moved a little bit higher today. Oil has been showing significant weakness. With everything going on in the Middle East, it sounds counterintuitive. Why?
It does, right? There's really an awful lot of supply relative to demand. That's one big issue because, remember, China's showing signs of slowing growth. The U.S. is not really rocking, and Europe is really in the doldrums. So the big demand for oil is really not there. And
for the American consumer, this is always sort of good news, bad news, because oil prices down means and the paying for fuel at the pump is sort of a tax, means less gas prices, but it also signifies some significant economic weakness.
Yes, it does. It does. And that's, the 6 of one and half dozen of another, right? Nobody likes to pay more at the pump. Or remember, we've got the winter coming up, and we're supposed to get another polar vortex. So, we're supposed to have a very cold and snowy winter in the Northeast, all across the country, actually. So, more to heat your home.
Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in sort of the international world right now, because the markets, while they've been sliding, certainly, they had not been hammered yet over this. Why do you think there's still such resiliency in the markets, even though we're looking at a deteriorating world situation?
We just have a lot of apathy, Andrew. That's just really built in.
People just don't care.
People are just, Yep.
They're like,
things are
so
fine,
these people are killing each other all over the world.
My 401k is going up. Yeah. It's okay. I get enough food on my plate. I can feed my family. I can get to my movies, et cetera, et cetera. We unfortunately are very, very narrow-minded. And, until these things really rock us in some way, shape, or form. I mean, last week, all the focus was overseas. Euro has dropped quite a bit. The British pound has dropped, 7 or 8% in the last few weeks. Euro's gone down 8 weeks in a row. But the average American doesn't care, doesn't see that, doesn't know
the British
how to
pound
translate.
it may be also collapsing because it's concerned the United Kingdom is completely falling apart. Scotland leaves, Wales going to go away. There's not going to be so much united part of the kingdom.
Exactly. And then Scotland's talking about joining the EU, and will that happen? And then what happens to the currency, et cetera, et cetera.
When you look at the market, then, when are we supposed to get this either September swoon or this correction? And of course, nobody can exactly guess it. But what are sort of the steps you see when you might start seeing some selling?
Well, the problem is that it could be what we talk about, the black swan event, something that just comes out of the blue. It could be, who expected the Scotland vote to change the way it did? If that happens in a few weeks, that could rock the market. Russia's been rattling their sword. What if it really does escalate into a full-blown war? What if, God forbid, something happens with Syria and the Middle East?
I'll tell you, we have not talked this much about Scotland since Sean Connery became James Bond, I think, right? I mean, it's all over the news, and it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. The Fed has been starting to make some noise about changing its language when it comes to interest rates. That's sort of like the prelude to the chapter before the book.
Right. So almost everybody thinks rates are going to stay low.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And so far, you've been right. You've actually made money in bonds this year. Yields have come way down overseas as well as here. I mean, 2 years ago, Spain's 10-year bond was 7%. It's 2%. 5% move on rates makes a huge difference in your price. So, high yield's been hot. The spread is really narrow. People are looking for yield, and the Fed has been trying to stimulate the economy, but it's really not working. And so the equities, we're the least dirty shirt.
And that's a good analogy. and at some point, maybe we're taking out the laundry, but not yet.
Not yet.
Kathy
Not
Boyle,
yet.
president of Chapin Hill Advisors. Thank you so much.
Great to be here.
And coming up, remembering 9/11 and one of the groups making a difference for families of the victims. You're watching Arise Exchange. Global. It's Monday, so it must be time for a new round of sanctions against Russia. Nigeria is open for business, and you are getting a handle on this situation. Compelling. Time for liquid lunch, things that make us want to drink. Could she have been separated at birth from, say, Grimace? All business.
Money's coming out of these countries, and that flow is part of what's driving the equity markets.
Entertaining money daily.
It's about reimagining.
Arise Exchange. Welcome back to Arise Exchange. After 9/11, many organizations were launched to help those in need after the tragic day. One of them, Tuesday's Children. This nonprofit was established to provide long-term support to thousands of children and the families of victims. Terry Sears is the director, and we are very honored to have you here today.
Great to be here.
Talk about how, over the years, there continues to be a growing momentum among the groups attracting more people. This is an event that just continues to resonate.
Yeah, well, when Tuesday's Children started, its mission was to focus on the children. But to get to the children, you have to form a trust with the adults. So initially, our programs were really with all the spouses, the 1,600 spouses that either lost a husband or wife in that day. And now we work with the children. The youngest are about 12 or 13 now. We do a lot of programs for them, from mentoring programs to career and college guidance programs, as well as leadership programs. We bring children together from all over the world that have been impacted by terrorism with the 9/11 children.
And it's important to know that some of the children don't remember the event at all.
Absolutely. The youngest kids, I talked to one of our moms today, they're just beginning to kind of digest and understand what this was about, not only on a personal level, but on a world level and at a national level. So our mission has expanded. We do a lot of work with the 9/11 responders. We also have included veterans. We consider the post-9/11 military operations to be also victims of 9/11. We work with families of the fallen, and we just finished a 3-day program where we brought 9/11 widows together with women who had lost their husband.
I've attended many of these events, and it's really amazing that when you put the families together, the support that they each have for each other.
Well, the bond is instant, I would say, and profound. You know, when you meet someone who's also lost a family member in such a sort of violent and dramatic way and public way, they know what someone else is going through. So it's an immediate connection. And that healing, I think, is kind of precipitated and catapulted by the bond. So that's why we continue to be there.
Can you talk about some of the companies that support financially the organization?
Certainly. Well, the scene of the crime was in the financial district. Initially, we were supported by organizations such as the American Red Cross and the Robert Hood Foundation, but corporations have stepped up. Corporations like Morgan Stanley, Marsh McLennan, UBS, and other financial entities have given us funds over the years.
How do you think we're doing as a country to keep the memory of what happened going? In the name of your organization, I didn't think we even had to say it, but Tuesdays because it happened on a Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. We said we'll never forget, and, in many cases that's true, but human nature as it is, you tend to forget and want to forget, especially with something, as dramatic as 9/11 and destructive. So we work very hard to make people understand that the needs are still there for these children and the family needs evolve. I heard today that there are some of our kids who are not doing very well. They're in college. There's substance abuse issues. There's feelings of anger, feelings of loss still to this day. So we made a solemn commitment to the families, and we're going to keep the promise to be there for them.
How did you get involved, real quick?
I'm from the town of Manhasset, Long Island, that lost 40 family members, and a group of the founders came to me and said, would you help us? And it was an easy, no-brainer kind of answer.
Okay, congratulations on all the work you're doing. Terry Sears, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay.
Time now for our business ticker. Stories making headlines across the nation and the world. In the latest developments leading up to Scotland's historic vote for or against independence, the country's namesake bank is threatening to leave. The Royal Bank of Scotland and Lloyds Bank both have said they would shift their bases to England if Scotland voted to break away from the United Kingdom. That would take place in a referendum next week. However, the latest poll shows the pro-union vote to keep the country as part of the UK is now in the lead by 6%. Meantime, the Scottish independence debate is encouraging the Catalans in Spain to demand a vote to break away. Catalonia, the northwest region in Spain with its own language and culture, has called for its own referendum. Millions of Californians are about to get paid for sick days. A landmark bill requiring nearly all California employers to provide a minimum of 3 paid sick days to their workers has been signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown. The new law will go into effect July of next year. And if you have a Gmail account now, might be a good time to change your password. Nearly 5 million Gmail addresses and passwords were hacked and listed on a Russian website. Google says its servers were not breached and does not believe the list to be very accurate. And a Camry, it is not. Meet a Toyota with $1 million price tag. When most of us think of cars in the seven-figure range, brands that typically come to mind are Bugatti, Ferrari, and Lamborghini, but rarely does Toyota enter into the conversation. Well, just recently, two 1967 2000 GT Toyotas, do we have video of it? Sold at $1 million each at auction in California. Rarity played a big factor in driving up the price, as 351 of the 2000 GT models were ever built. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell is facing mounting pressure following the league's handling of the Ray Rice domestic violence case. Goodell has consistently said neither he nor the league saw the elevator video of Rice knocking out his wife when he was initially suspended for just 2 days. Now, a law enforcement officer has told the Associated Press that he turned the video over to the league back in April. Here is Goodell on CBS This Morning.
So did anyone in the NFL see the second videotape before Monday?
No.
No one in the NFL?
No one in the NFL, to my knowledge, and I've been asked that same question, and the answer to that is no.
Mike Bako, sports editor at dailynational.com, back here on Arise Exchange. Mike, you and I have been talking about this now for several programs. It appears that the momentum, as they say in football, is not swinging towards Roger Goodell's way.
Absolutely not. But that momentum is being pushed back by some of the owners. Some of the most powerful owners, Robert Kraft, Jerry Jones, have come out in support of Roger Goodell. But you're seeing the pushback from not only players, media, fans, National Organization of Women have all come out looking for him to have his ouster. So this deck is beginning to be stacked against him.
You know, we have to remind everybody that the commissioner works for the owners.
Yes.
Sometimes the owners feel like they're working for the commissioner, which is how it's basically structured. Goodell got himself into a little bit of a problem here, though, because when he took the job, he basically became the judge, jury, and executioner on these matters, right?
Absolutely. You look at things like the New Orleans Saints, Bounty Gate. He went out of his way to punish the New Orleans Saints and said a statement that may come back to haunt him when he suspended Coach Sean Payton for 1 year. He said, if something is going on under your roof and you are the head of that organization, you need to know about it. So here he is saying, to my knowledge, no one in the NFL office has seen this tape. Well, the Associated Press has come out and certainly said that he received a phone call from a female executive at the NFL. So that's someone under his purview.
So there's some evidence that he did speak to a female executive.
Well, there's no evidence that the executive spoke to Roger Goodell, but it's certainly there is overwhelming evidence to say that someone in that office has seen it. So not to say that he is lying, he may be, under the cloak of, to my knowledge. You heard that quote that he said to Norah O'Donnell.
Yeah,
so that might be his saving grace.
They're all lawyers over there.
Yes.
So the question is, did the NFL and do you think Goodell sort of react too quickly when they saw the elevator video in the statements they made? My God, we never saw this. I mean, should he have said, Rice, you're gone, but now we better figure out what went on here?
I think that's right on point. He came out very declaratively and said, we never saw this. Now, that opened up questions to, why didn't you see it? If you have these investigators on the NFL payroll who are former police commissioners and FBI agents, why weren't they digging a little bit harder and a little bit deeper? So that's where the questions come in, where a TMZ can get this. I mean, you look across at Major League Baseball, they went out of their way, rightly or wrongly, to pay for documents from medical labs. They wanted to find the evidence. It almost seemed like the NFL didn't want to find this evidence.
Do you think the next step for the NFL should be basically to say we have a new system set up to evaluate, investigate, and sort of prosecute. I mean, we haven't heard that yet from them. They say we're going to do a better job. We don't know what that job is going to be.
I think because of the nature of the NFL, you're looking at domestic abuse violations, you're looking at drug violations, you're looking at off-the-field issues. I don't think there could be one overall system that covers everything because everything is different case to case. So I think they need to look internally and say, you know, are we just trying to whitewash it and and protect the shield, shine the shield? Everything about the NFL is about the bottom line, ratings, money. This is really where the intersection of that comes about.
Okay, so, you know, with all this going on, Condoleezza Rice's name comes back up into the equation, the former Secretary of State under the President Bush. She's a huge football fan. She was said to be considered for the job the first time around. You want to put any odds that we may see her in the commissioner's suite anytime?
I think if Goodell is ousted, I think she would be a logical person to bring in just to save face from a PR standpoint.
A woman.
A woman, circle the wagons, new stability. But this is a position, as you mentioned, the owners hired this person. They're looking at the bottom line. She does not have that background to take the NFL from an $8 billion business to 10, 15, 20.
It's a
That's
business.
what they're looking for.
And we'll wrap it there. But the last commissioner I can remember getting ousted was Faye Vincent. It's been quite a few years.
It has been,
okay,
yes.
Mike Bako, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ahead, where were you on September 11th? You're watching Arise Exchange. Last week on Arise Exchange. Are you ready for some football? The NFL money machine gears up.
It's a dicey situation when you look at how much money is being funneled in and how much money they're taking.
There is a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russian separatists. They have stopped shooting at each other. We call that progress. The owner of the Java Jugs coffee shop has pleaded guilty to offering a daily dose of caffeine and sex, giving her customers a little extra jolt with their coffee. Watch this week for more Arise Exchange. It's one of those days that if you are old enough, you remember exactly where you were. September 11th, 2011, on a sunny Tuesday, shortly after 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Some of us watched the events unfold in real time right in front of us. The rest witnessed it on television. We asked our staff where they were this day 13 years ago.
We started to hear telephone chatter from cell phones, and some sort of plane had hit one of the Twin Towers.
I was just walking out the door and saw it on TV.
I was actually asleep and got a call from my best friend's wife who said, just wanted to call and make sure you were okay. I heard the Twin Towers had just collapsed. And I remember saying to her, that's not funny. Why would you make a joke like that?
We realized it was something bigger when a lot of the signals had gone down and people couldn't get through on a number of cell phones.
My father is a former NYPD, and that day I was trying to contact him and wasn't able to until later that night.
I go outside and it was 72nd Street and there was no one outside.
The city felt noticeably emptier. It haunted me for many months.
I think since then we've always been a little bit more aware of just how impermanent life can be.
And some great thoughts from our staff. Coming up, we're going to end the show on a positive story, how the son of an iconic musician is making his own mark in coffee. You're watching Arise Exchange. Stay with us.
September 11th, 2001, America was attacked by terrorists.
My first impressions were like, where did two 110-story buildings go?
A massive rescue effort was immediately set in motion.
Hundreds of people frantically digging.
The ludicrousy of trying to remove that pile with a bucket.
We needed heavy equipment and people very skilled in moving the debris quickly.
Join us for the incredible untold story of 9/11. Don't miss our Arise special, Ground Zero, the Unsung Heroes.
More than 30 years after his death in 1981, the name Marley is still a powerful brand. In our corner office tonight, we meet Bob Marley's son, Rohan Marley, who has brewed up a successful coffee business. What started as a way to bolster a Jamaican community has turned into a multi-million-dollar venture in what is a very tough field. Rohan joins us here on Arise Exchange. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's a real honor to have you. You talk about sustainability in the coffee business.
Yes.
Talk to me about what sustainability means from both the environmental impact and also the communities you're trying to impact.
Well, first and foremost, give thanks for having us, you know. To myself, sustainability really represents longevity, you know, doing things that will benefit the community. You know, when I started Marley Coffee in 1999, the idea started from myself wanting to create opportunities for people in the community, you know. And I figure, since I wasn't so knowledgeable of the farming industry, I figured that being from the Marley family legacy and understanding what it is to be about, you know, in business field, anything that we do, it's all about giving back, you know. So my first interpretation of sustainability was being able to create the opportunities in the community with my farm to create the jobs. And then from that, it took me 10 years to really get into the business component. So as far as it goes with the business side, I mean, I think with my Eco Cups that I'm getting ready to launch coming up in next spring, I think that's being the first to do that in the single-serve market.
Yeah, because you had been criticized a little bit for using these single-serve cups, which are not exactly environmentally friendly. So how did you get to now? Well, what is an Eco Cup exactly?
An Eco Cup is just being able to have something that's really beneficial to the environment. Because, you know, it's so hard to really have the two luxury, having a great cup of coffee, as well as providing something that's sustainable to the environment.
You had to learn a lot about farming.
Sure.
Can you give us a little bit of an overview of the sort of farming and agricultural business in Jamaica and the pressures that has been under?
Well, when I started out, you needed to have a certain amount of produce. Like, you know, the restrictions are you have to produce 6,000 boxes. So if you're not an empire, if you're not a big organization,
produce.
Yeah, you know, 6,000 boxes, you have to have that many. You need maybe 1,000 acres to do that. And my farm, not being the biggest farm in Jamaica, you know, we couldn't do that. So it's really to protect the legacy of the Blue Mountain coffee, as they would say, you know. So it's really being able to be doing things that are certified. So you have to become certified through the organization, and that's kind of a toll on any farmer because, you know, the farmers are mainly used to the earth. So when you get into the business side now and trying
Farmers aren't necessarily the best business people, is what you're saying.
You know, they're more passionate. Their business is their passion, so they're so busy in the earth, they're not really focused on the numbers, you know.
How is the coffee in Jamaica different than the coffee elsewhere?
Well, you know, anywhere that coffee is growing, it's all about the altitude and the environment that it's growing in. You know, Jamaican coffee is growing in the Blue Mountains of Jamaica. And with that, we have the altitude causes us to have a lot of shade and also great cloud, because sometimes the sun is what really damages the fruit, you know. Too much sun can cause the fruit to be overripened or even mature too early. So it
tastes different, right? Every geographic area that makes coffee has a different component to it, which makes it very unique.
Because of the earth, you know, because you get the notes from the earth. You know, in Jamaica, we're known for a balanced cup of coffee. You know, we're not so, the acidity level is very low, so you can taste a lot of notes, nutmeg, you know, cinnamon.
Okay, so you had to make the coffee, and you had to get it here and distribute it in the United States. How tough has it been? You've done a great job now, but in the beginning, what was it like going up against some of the giant coffee makers?
Well, I never found myself going up against anyone, you know, because I was just doing something that I thought was beneficial to a community. And as a Marley, I wanted to like do more than.
Is that sort of a takeaway for people who go into business? If you start in your community and you help your community and you make a good product,
it's a reason, and it's a great reason to start something when you're going to do something that's not only beneficial to yourself. I think that's the best way to start any business.
We have about a minute left. What's next for you?
What's next for us? Well, you know, I want to give thanks because, you know, growing in Denver, where I've been adopted by all the organizations there, the Colorado Rockies, the Colorado University, Broncos. So, you know, I want to just thank the community for really accepting us in Denver and the rest of the world. And,
you know, your name, the legacy of this name is so well known to even people who never listen to the music. Isn't it amazing the impact that it has?
The message is everything.
The message is everything,
yes.
Right? Okay, Rohan, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Yes,
Tomorrow on Rise Exchange, Fashion Week wraps up here in New York City. We'll break down the costs associated with one of fashion world's biggest events. Let's take a look at the final numbers again on Wall Street on this 9/11. Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped into the red to 17,049, but the S&P 500 and NASDAQ turning around a couple of days of losses, ending up in the green. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arise Exchange. We will see you back here tomorrow.